ni Jarius Bondoc. Alamin ang kaganapan sa likod ng mga balita. Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc. Makiscoop sa mga puputok na issue. Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc. Mainit na komentaryo, malalimang interview, special report, scoop at tips sa modernang buhay. Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc. At ngayon, narito na ang batikang kolumnista, Journalist of the Year ng Metrobank Foundation, Hall of Fame Journalist and Opinion Writer of the Year ng Rotary Club of Manila, and Golden Dove Awardee, Mr. Jarius Bondoc, kasama si Miss Marisa.
Good morning Philippines. Good morning, Miss Marisa.
Good morning, Jarius. Good morning, mga kaibigan. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. Happy birthday, Dr. J. Batong Bakal, Director of the UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea. At kay Miss Maluyang Bao ng Elm Seafood Paluto. Happy birthday. Happy birthday kay Manix Pablo ng California. Kantahan na tayo. Happy birthday din kay Delia Alcantara. Greetings from Rhea. At kay Brian Torrejon. Greetings from Rita, Annalie, and Summer. Happy birthday din kay Banco de Oro Relationship Manager Francis Jacinto from Risa and Bianca. At huwag kalimutan si Valentine Boy, Winner Contahino.
Valentine's Day ang birthday ni Winner.
Oo.
Si Winner natin.
Winner mo.
Amamas ko po.
Bakit hindi Lover Boy ang pangalan niyan kung gano'n?
Sobra na yun. Happy birthday din kay Iris Gonzalez ng Philippine Star. And kay Ting Oviedo ng Las Vegas. And Dr. Edith Navarro, a retina expert ng UST, University of Santo Tomas Hospital.
And Chuchi Foundation.
Chuchi at Cardinal Santos. Greetings to the senior citizens of Jaén Nueva Ecija, headed by the very energetic Mr. Renato Balagtas na laging nakikinig sa atin. Ganon din si Engineer Dante Aquino ng Dagupan City. Hello! Happy weekend, Norbert Chinquanco, Jaime and Heidi Chua, Jerry Fang, Tony and Stella Silva, Oya Vasquez, Mari Cabrera, Monen Oji Conde ng Imus. Hello, Susan Nahera, Jerry Bato, Boss Edgard and Ma'am Sharon, Godi Bamba, Tina and Red Mendoza, Rudy and Livy Oviedo, and General Butch and Evelyn Respesio ng Antipolo.
Para ka nag-check ng attendance, ano, Miss Marisa?
Halata, no? Parang may tingnan ko kung sinong hindi, kung wala dito ngayon.
Mark absent.
Mark. Happy weekend, Vanji and Besterado. Dr. Nikki Angbuete ng Novagen Eye Center.
Careful driving, Dr. Nikki.
Ben and Lily Martillo ng Bulacan. Jason and Monique De Leon ng Caloocan. At sa ating mga suki sa Fairview, Quezon City, Mar and Zenny Lee, Doc Andy and Frances Aguila, Queenie in Chelsea, Yang and Liza Bonilla. At hello kila Rosel D. and Ning Absede De Leon. At Elmer Ngo ng Seafood Paluto, Calle Bistro, Ever Gotesco, Quezon City. Ako, itry nyo yan. Napakasarap. Hello kila Roddy and Mike Davidson ng Melbourne.
Hello, good morning, mates.
Kuhang-kuha mo na. Kay Albert Garcia ng Sydney, Ernie and Marian Wong ng Toronto, and Manong Pert Cruz ng Angeles, Pampanga, o Kakatilo ng Infanta. Oy, kinakawayan ko pa sila, nakakatawa.
Parang kinakawayan? Abot yung kaway mo hanggang Infanta, Quezon. Believe ako.
Para akong nakakamera, kumakaway pa ako. Text us your comments, reactions sa 0999-376-6768. 0999-376-6768 or through Facebook at YouTube. I-type nyo lang DWIZ 882. And don't forget your name and location. We'd love to hear from you.
Pag-uusapan natin mga hot issues of the week. Re-repasuhin natin with God's help. We wish to be very educational, informative, and even entertaining.
Mamaya pasasayawin si Wener.
Yun ba ang idea mo ng entertainment? Parang yung isang isang kandidato na simula na ng kampanya kasi nung February 8, Martes. Yan, yung mga for national positions. President, Vice President, Senator, and party list. Party list representative. Party list lang actually ang isusulat mo. Hindi yung pangalan ng partido, hindi yung pangalan ng magiging representative doon. Tapos, siyempre, para mapansin ka sa entablado kung maraming nandun. Kailangan may gumimik ka na lang, sasayaw ka, gano'n.
Ano naman ang pakialam ng pagiging dancer sa pagle-legislate,
Ewan ko, pero kailangan siguro para mas mapansin ka, wag lang sasayaw. Laos ng gimmick yan eh. Kumain ka siguro ng boting basag, yung bubog, di ba? Sumubo ka ng apoy, di ba? Tumulay ka sa alambre, di ba?
Nung bata ako, bumibili pa ako ng ticket para makapasok doon sa kumakain ng buhay na manok.
Oo, karnabal, Yun, magandang gimmick yun, di ba? Hindi mo tatanggalan ng balahibo.
Hindi, wala. As is, nature. So, itong huli itong latest na balita, yung drinap na or tapos na yung may ruling na ang first division ng COMELEC na
ito yung naging controversial.
Yung DQ disqualification kay Bongbong Marcos.
At naging controversial, di ba? Dahil ang tagal nga nilabas yung desisyon, umaangal na yung division chairman, si Commissioner Rowena Guanzon, na parang inihintay ba ako mag-retire sa February 4 para hindi ma-count yung boto ko? Unanimous nga yung natirang dalawa. Pareho silang bumoto for DQ. Kaya nga,
na hindi ma-DQ.
Hindi ma-DQ, na i-junk yung petition against the disqualification, sorry. And ang naging ponente pa rin, si Commissioner Amy Ferolino. At kasama niya si Commissioner Marlon Casquejo. Sabi nila, paano yun? Alam mo, naging controversial ito. Yun ang pinag-uusapan ngayon ng mga tao. Sa Abril, deadline, ng filing ng lahat ng income earners sa Pilipinas. Deadline ng filing ng income tax returns. Ang ipafile mo na lang daw ay isang card kung saan kino-quote mo yung decision dito. The failure to file an income tax return is not necessarily
inherently wrong.
Not inherently wrong. In the absence
of a law punishing it.
Tsaka
malabs,
hindi raw moral turpitude yan o 4 na sunod-sunod na taon lang naman kasing hindi nag-file. 1982, 1983, 1984, 1985. Vice governor ka lang naman noon, tsaka naging governor nung 4 na taon na yon. Kinonvict ka lang naman ng 4 na beses ng lower court. Diba? Pero pwede ka pa rin kasi hindi moral turpitude.
Ang dali-dali nga nung definition ni Commissioner Guanzon, di ba? Ano ba ang moral turpitude? Bad yun, di ba?
No, tanungin mo yung bata. Tanungin mo yung bata, di ba? Tanungin mo yung musmos. Eto ba? Tama ba ito? Hindi. Bad ba yan? Good ba yan? Ganun. Pag sinabi ng bata, bad yan, di ba?
Yun.
Hindi nagbayad ng buwis. Opisyal pa naman, 4 na sunod-sunod na taon. Ganun na yun. Pero, well, sa mga abogado, pwedeng baluktutin yun.
Oo, kung ano na lang.
So, I just hope that they realize that this should become applicable to all. If it's applicable to one, should be applicable to all. Pantay-pantay dapat ang tingin sa lahat ng mamamayan. So, miski hindi ka magbayad ng buwis ngayon, tapos gusto mong kumandidatong presidente next time, walang kaso yan. Miski 4 na taon, ito mula ngayon hanggang next presidential election, so that would be after 6 years, 6 na taon kang wag magbayad ng buwis. Diba? Hindi ka dapat tatanggalin sa listahan. Diba? Patas dapat yan. No? Kahit sinong gustong kumandidato at kahit sinong gustong bumoto. Ganun ang mangyayari ngayon. Diba? Yun ang nakakapagtaka. Tapos sinasabi ngayon, may mga paliwanag si COMELEC spokesman James Jimenez na iba naman yung mala prohibita, yung inherently wrong kasi yung halimbawa pagpatay.
You sound like a lawyer.
Pagkahasa. Hindi, siya nagsasabi nito. Tapos yung
mala inse itself versus a mala prohibited.
Yung mala inse, yung naglagay ka ng bagong halimbawa batas o ordinansa o bawal mag-jaywalking. Pero mahirap yung ganong iyaano mo, ano?
Yun yata yung mala prohibitum mali pa ako. Yun yung may batas.
Pero ang point dito, may sinasabi siya na may mga there are things that are inherently wrong. Pero depende nga yan sa lipunan eh. Pero mga lipunan hanggang ngayon, up to recently, may mga remote tribes sa Samoa, alam mo, baliwala sa kanila na i-rape nung isang kapatid ng isang lalaki, yung kapatid niyang babae. Miski bata, miski sa harap ng magulang. It happens. There are di ba? Incest na tinatanggap sa mga pamilya ng mga hari, di ba?
Panahon nila Tulemi.
Hindi up to now, may mga ganon. Pinsan sa pinsan.
Oh yeah.
First cousins or
royal line.
Tiyo sa pamangkin. Ganon. It happens up to now. Meron naman mga lipunan na para sa kanila tsaka sa sampalataya nila, sa Diyos nila doon sa lipunan na yon, na pwede silang pumatay. Sacrifices, mga ganon. Sacrificial killing, mga ganyan
Na hindi masama yon.
Oo. Hindi inherently evil. Kaya hindi mo pwede masaside din yung mga ganon Pero ang naalala ko lang, ito, yung makakalusot ka and then you can now rise, kung maalala niyo mga kaibigan, 2 days ago in this show, nagkwento si Commissioner Guanzon na wala siyang personal na galit kay Amy Ferolino, Commissioner Ferolino. In fact, sabi niya, kinuwento niya, bago yan mapasok dito sa commission mismo, siya ay nasa isang lower level official.
Sa COMELEC din.
Ng COMELEC. Tapos, just before the 2016 presidential and local elections, nawala ni Officer Ferolino yung kanyang voters list. Kinikwento ni Commissioner Guanzon. Galit na galit si Chairman Andres Bautista ng COMELEC at sinabi suspindihin ito ng 6 na buwan. Nag-intercede si Commissioner Guanzon, sabi niya, maawa naman tayo. Pag sinuspindi natin ng 6 na buwan ito, nasa record niya ito. Ngayon, para lang siya maparusahan at magtanda, i-withhold na lang natin yung sweldo for 6 months para, meron pa siyang kinabukasan dito. Kasi kung hindi, this will be a black mark on her public service record. So, tinanggap yung, December 2020, inappoint pa ngayon si Ferolino sa commission itself. Nakaangat siya. So, based on that, there was nothing inherently wrong sa kapabayaan at wala yung voters list kung ano ba ang nangyari noon. Diba? Nawala raw yung voters list, sabi ni Commissioner Guanzon. Ganon din. Kung hindi ka nagbayad ng 4 na sunod-sunod na taon ng income tax returns mo.
Okay lang yun.
Pwede.
Ganun ang simple,
Okay. Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
DWIZ.
At ngayon, balikan natin ang programang Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
Hey, you're listening to Sapol at it's 8:20. Yung mga teleponong gusto nyong tawagan or i-text 0999-376-6768. 0999-376-6768. Text lang pala ang inyong mga comments or reactions. O kaya sa Facebook or YouTube.
Okay. Last year, March, mga kaibigan, was the first election held in the Philippines under a pandemic. In a pandemic situation, I mean. Ito yung plebisito sa Palawan. Kung pabor ba sila, mga Palawenyo, hatiin ang probinsya nila sa tatlo. Tatlo, North Palawan, South Palawan, tsaka isang gitnang Palawan. Tapos, kampanya rito yung mga environmentalists against it. This was a plebiscite, not really yung halalan na pipili ka ng mga kandidato. Pero yes or no lang ito, no? Pero may pipiliin ka pa rin. Pupunta ka pa rin sa presinto. Mag-ano ka?
Oo. Tapos siyempre may
pipilap
campaign.
ng balota.
May kampanya yun, di ba?
Yung mga environmentalist nga, sinasabi nila, iba, hindi pwede ito. Pag hinati natin itong probinsya ito, kung ano na mangyayari, mapopoliticalize yung ano natin dito, yung environment protection. Napakahigpit na mga Palawenyo sa pagtatanggol ng kanilang kalikasan, di ba? Last frontier nga kung tawagin, may mga gubat doon, tapos yung mga karagatan, bawal na bawal doon yung mga pagdidimamita, pag ano doon sa mga isda, di ba?
Dito rin nga lang di ba? Mapapine.
Tsaka yung di ba, yung sinasayanay para makahuli ng isda na hilo lang, tapos nadali mo sa restaurant o sa palengke, mga ganun. Umaangal sila ron kasi ang higpit masyado nung campaign rules in the sense na hindi makapag-ikot yung mga nagka-campaign ng no. Yung mga local officials na nakaupo noon, provincial tsaka municipal, yes, sila na mahati sa tatlo ang isla into 3 provinces. Umangal sila noon na bakit ganito, hindi sila makapag-campaign for no dahil ayaw silang payagan mag-cross ng border naman lang. Ang inihirit kasi sa kanila, hindi, may pandemic ngayon, hindi pwedeng pumasok dito kung sino-sino lang. Ganun Nagkahirapan na, although nanalo pa rin nga ang no. Ngayon, iba na ngayon. May mga ihahalal tayo ngayon na mga opisyales sa lokal. At kung nakaupo yung sa lokal at kung makandidato siya uli, paano naman yung mga kalaban? Kasi sa kanya dadaan yung mga ganitong mga yung tsaka yung pag-enforce ng mga pandemic restrictions, di ba? Ano kaya mangyayari sa atin dito?
Makakapanayam natin isang expert on automated election litigation, election lawyer, attorney Emil Marañon III. Good morning,
Good morning.
Emil.
Opo, good morning po sa inyo at saka sa nakikinig po ng inyong programa po.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Opo, yes,
Attorney Emil, sa tingin nyo ba, magiging patas ang kampanya ngayon, lalo na ito, may mga iyahalal tayo, may mga re-electionist na nakaupo ngayon sa lokal, at sila rin meron silang mga pinapatupad na campaign protocols.
Okay. Unang-una siguro po, in the first place, yung nature naman ng Philippine election is never naman po naging patas yan. An incumbent against the challenger. Because of course na po, if you are the incumbent, you have all the resources of the entire local government unit or of the government, tapos sulugi talaga po yung incumbent. So yun, so unang puntos po yun. And of course, recently there's such a regulation coming from COMELEC that actually requires that for you to campaign physically, kailangan po natin humingi ng permit galing sa COMELEC. Ito po yung tinatawag na CCC or COMELEC Campaign Committee. And of course, one of the requirements in order to apply for that permit is, for example, in the case of a rally or a motorcade, kailangan po natin kumuha ng permit galing sa LGU. So yung sinasabi ko nga dyan, what if nga naman if kalaban mo yung nakaupong mayor, so baka pahirapan yung pagkuha mo po ng permit or baka i-deny yung permit mo. So that way po, hindi ka po makakakuha ng tinatawag na CCC permit. And in that case po, hindi ka po pwedeng magkampanya or mag-rally against doon po sa kalaban ninyo. Or bawal ka po mag-conduct ng political activity to actually pursue your own candidacy po.
Mhm. So paano mangyayari doon? Hindi nga magiging patas. But the election law, Omnibus Election Code, requires na ipatas ito, ano? Kaya nga meron nilabas yung COMELEC na Resolution 10732 para nga raw maging patas sa panahon ng pandemya. Pero na ano ba ito? Nasagot yung mga ganito. Halimbawa, kasi hindi lang naman direktang kalaban ka eh. Halimbawa, Attorney Emil, halimbawa ako governor. Kumakandidato kang congressman, ako kandidato uling governor at nakapwesto ako. Kumakandidato kang congressman or kung ano man, pero kapatid ko kalaban mo. Misis ko kalaban mo. Ganun eh.
Which is very common in the Philippines.
Exactly. So, ano ang situation sa ganun ngayon? Paano maipapatas ito?
Yun nga po yung problema is because because of this additional layer of requirements coming from COMELEC, you are namamagnify po actually yung advantage ng incumbent. So, just to give you an example, in the past elections, pwede ka naman po mangampanya nang hindi po humihingi ng permit na sinabi ko kanina. For example, kung gusto niyo mag-conduct ng rally in a private location, for example, or in a freedom park na tinalaga sa inyong lugar, hindi niyo po actually kailangan ng permit galing sa LGU. So because of this additional layer of requirements coming from COMELEC, mas na-magnify po. So I hope that COMELEC can actually study this regulation and para po hindi po mas lalong mas lumala yung advantage ng incumbent doon po sa kanilang potential challenges po. Kasi nasabi ko kanina, ang elections naman sa Pilipinas, especially if you're running against the incumbent, is never equal naman po. It is always disadvantageous against doon running against whoever is sitting po.
Maaaring bigyan ka ng permit pero last 2 minutes na lang, huling-huli ng bara ilabas yun. Hindi ka nakapagplano ng gusto.
Opo, kasi for example, yung permit na galing sa COMELEC, it needs to be applied parang 72 hours before the event. So dapat 72 hours before niyan may permit ka na. Minsan, ang experience namin sa pagkuha ng LGU permit na yan, minsan na-delay kasi maraming hinihingi. May instances pa, for example, kunwari, rally in a private location, in a hotel, for example. Minsan, pinipressure pa ng LGU na kahit nabigyan na even ng COMELEC ng permit, pinapatigil pa rin yung activity. So yun, these are the problems actually na nakikita natin. And I'm pretty sure pagdating ng campaign period for the local election is coming March 25, mas magulo pa po ito kasi as of now nga po na national pa lang yung campaign period, magulo na. With more reason po yan na pagsama-sama na lahat ng local candidates, mas malaki po yung problema natin dyan.
Tsaka yung gulo na sinasabi nyo, sir, yung termino nyo, Attorney Emil, nakakatakot, yung gulo. Hindi lang ito gulo in the sense na confusion, kundi gulo na maaring mauwi sa violence. Yung karahasan. Dahil pag nagkapikunan na sa diyan sa lokal, di ba? Yan nga nagiging mas violente yung mga local fights. Oo,
mas personal po ang laban pag local po unlike national. Personal po yung laban. Ayun po, so yun ang potential problem din yan po is baka nga po mag-trigger ng gulo din. So at saka po, of course, we have to take note that this is the first time that the COMELEC is implementing this prior permit rule sa pangangampanya because in the past election wala namang ganito. So ako siguro mahirap po i-implement sa level ng local na election kasi nga kung confused nga po yung national na merong silang mga abogado, election lawyers, can you imagine kung yung mga tumatakbong konsihal, mayor, tapos ganito yung requirements mo, tapos kung gaano kadami yan sa buong Pilipinas, kung hindi ba magkakagulo yan, di ba? Kasi to give you an example, again, ang threat dyan is kung wala kang permit galing sa COMELEC, pwede po kayo ma-disperse and there are even election officers who are threatening arrest kung wala ka daw permit galing from COMELEC. So for me, this is something na medyo po dapat pinag-aralan pa pa ng husto ng COMELEC po. Bago
kasi yung sinasabi niyo, Attorney Emil, na pag-aresto, bawal yan, di ba? Sa election code.
Yes, correct po yun.
Arrestuin mo yung kandidato.
Section 266 of the Omnibus Election Code, supposedly po, election offense yung pag-aresto during a campaign po. Pag nangangampanya kayo tapos inaresto kayo ng police or ng COMELEC po, that is an election offense. Kasi bawal tayo mag-aresto in the context of a campaign po. So, klarong-klaro po yan sa Omnibus Election Code.
Pero, Attorney Emil, on the other hand, mayroon talaga mga health protocols na kailangan ipatupad. No? So, paano yung, how do you see this being balanced? Kailangan babalansehin ito, ano?
Opo, naintindihan naman natin po that the purpose of this requirement actually is to prevent na maging super spreader event yung election campaign activities.
Yes.
But kung titingnan po ninyo, ano ho ba yung effect pag nakakuha ka ng permit? Minsan naman kahit nakakuha ka ng permit, wala namang nagbabantay yung sa baba. Ang punto dito po, perhaps pwedeng i-require ng COMELEC o even ng IATF na pag nangampanya kayo, as simple as mag-maintain kayo ng tinatawag na MPHS or the Minimum Public Health Standard. So pwede naman po yun na i-require nyo sa candidate but without actually going to the extent of getting this another layer of permitting system po. And ang sinasabi ko nga po, apart from this, ang matatamaan sa regulasyon na to ng COMELEC is yung mga private citizens po. Because, di ba, karapatan natin under the Omnibus Election Code in the Constitution as private citizens is to do mass action or mass gathering to actually promote the victory or even oppose a candidate. Under these new rules of COMELEC po, private citizens are not allowed to apply for a permit. So if they are not allowed to apply for a permit, this means na bawal po silang maggumawa ng political activity to support a candidate or to oppose a candidate, which is for me po, baka maging constitutional issue ito because we're actually trying to restrict the right of people to do mass gathering. Because klaro po sa resolution ng COMELEC that only candidates and political parties can apply for a permit po eh.
So, paano may iwasan ito, sir? Ano? Kinukonsulta po ba kayo? Kayo mga election lawyers, ano po? Bilang naman kayo hindi naman lahat ng abogado, espesyalista sa halalan, ano? There are just a few of you. Were you consulted here?
Ng COMELEC po. Actually po, well, I was also part of COMELEC for 5 years. So, alam ko po yung proseso din na pagpasa ng mga resolusyon ng COMELEC. And to a certain extent po, siguro kailangan ng improvement on the part of COMELEC as regards consultation or collaboration with the public. For example, we never heard of this proposed regulation even before ito pumapasa. Bigla na lang pong nilabas and na lang po, nasorpresa na lang lahat na may ganun palang resolution. In other words po, tama po kayo na dapat sana in the future yung COMELEC, before sana ito ilabas, dapat magkonsulta muna sa publiko, sa mga candidates, political parties, or even sa mga election lawyers po. Because I think there are many defects doon sa resolution na nilabas ng COMELEC po.
Especially if this is even their first time to conduct an election. Hindi lang po in a pandemic, but the first time ever ng ilang commissioners na magkukonduct ng halalan.
Opo, at saka sa akin po, hindi naman po bago yung pandemya na to. 2020 pa lang may pandemic na. And actually, on the part of Congress, on the part of the COMELEC, we have 2 years to actually prepare. So yung akin na po, dapat nagpasa tayo ng batas to actually do something about our elections. For example, sa ibang bansa, pinapaboto natin yung senior citizens ahead of time. Yung parang hindi sila po humalo doon sa regular na mga tao sa pagboto because most of them have existing comorbidities po. So mga ganong sistema sana po na para mas ma-prevent natin yung eleksyon na maging super spreader event, even the campaign. So in other words, ang haba po ng oras natin para pag-aralan yung sistemang ito, and na-surprise lang kami na wala tayong ginawa in the past 2 years, and then we come up with a resolution na for me needs a lot of improvement po in terms of how it was worded, kasi hindi klaro po eh. Ang daming confusion pag binasa mo, ang daming mga katanungan rather than kasagutan po.
Attorney Emil, next to impossible magpasa ng batas ngayon, kasi ang next ang reopening of Congress would be in May, just to di ba? Sa Mayo na ito after the national election. So mahihirapang i-convene ang Senate at House of Representatives at this point, lalo na nag-aanda rin silang kumampanya.
Kumampanya din po. That is correct po. Mahirap na. I think too late na if we're going to pass new regulations, for example, empower COMELEC, for example, to impose new regulations. Kasi nga sinasabi nga namin, sir, why we are complaining about this is yung requirement ng COMELEC permit is actually not provided in the law. Wala pong batas na nagre-require yan. It is merely a COMELEC regulation. So, ang requirement kasi ng batas is mere LGU permit if it is in a public place. If it's not in a public place, private property, for example, you are not even required to actually apply for a permit. So, in other words, COMELEC impose a new requirement na wala naman pong basihan sa batas. And yun nga yung sinasabi namin, kung wala po yan sa batas, bakit natin nire-require? So actually, it's a constitutional issue po.
Oo, so ibig sabihin, Attorney Emil, you're saying pwedeng questionin sa hukuman nito.
And I'm pretty sure po it's a matter of time that this will go up to the Supreme Court kasi po ang daming mga private initiatives actually to campaign for or against a candidate are being stopped, are being denied all over the Philippines right now because nire-require nila yung COMELEC permit. And syempre, pag private citizens ka, as I have mentioned earlier, hindi ka naman allowed actually to apply for a permit. So you end up being actually stopped by the police, by the LGU from doing your right, from exercising your right. So actually, matter of time yan. Siguro nag-aantay lang ng actual controversy yung mga abogado somewhere before they can go up. And I personally knew there are many people who are actually planning to do this, to assail this to the Supreme Court because of this, there are so many potential constitutional issues as regards this new regulation of the COMELEC.
Attorney Emil, yung pagbabawal ng COMELEC Campaign Committee, CCC, sa pagkuha ng selfies. Di ba importanteng arsenal yan ng politiko na may mga ka-selfie?
Hindi, tsaka kuminsan, hindi mo aakalain yung mga politiko, yung mga kandidato, nagugulat na lang, may biglang didikit sa kanila, tapos kukunin yun silang dalawa. O kuminsan tatlo. Opo. So, yun na nga po, sinasabi din doon sa regulasyon ng COMELEC, I just to inform the public that during a physical campaign, bawal po ang pag-selfie o pagkuha ng picture na kung saan malapit daw po yung kandidato sa publiko. But yung nga, tama kayo doon sa situation na what if bigla sila yung lumapit sa'yo at saka magka-picture, ano magagawa mo? Kasi in the context of the Philippines po, we are very, mahilig tayo po, we are touchy people. So in other words, for example, bawal po sa resolution na yan, mga musta. Bawal daw po mag-handshake, bawal any form of physical contact. Kung sa probinsya ka po, pag tumanggi ka po ng mga musta sa tao or mag-physical contact sa tao, iisipin po niya na ay suplado naman yung kandidatong to. Hindi ko iboboto yan. So in other words po, siguro pag-isipan natin yun because for me there are ways naman of doing it safely. For example, kasi po, for example, nalaman natin yung pinaka-recent development sa study ng COVID-19 virus, for example, mas aerosol actually or mas airborne yung transmission rather than physical contact. So pwede naman po i-require na, for example, when you may physical contact, then mag-alcohol or something like that. In other words, there are
possible less restrictive means of implementing the minimum public health standard rather than saying na no physical contact, no selfie, no photograph.
May punto po kayo, no? So, may pagkakataon pa kayang makausap yung CCC, sir, as a last question, ano? Yung National CCC tsaka yung mga lokal na counterparts nito, itong COMELEC campaign committees, ano po, pwede kayang doon pag-usapan yan? Yung mga practical na solusyon sa mga practical na sitwasyon.
Opo. So siguro po, yun na nga, siguro we have seen the first week of the campaign because nagbukas nga po yung kampanya last February 8. So siguro po, as with all any regulations po, wala naman pong permanent. So dapat lahat po ng regulasyon natin under continuing examination po yan, kung responsive ba yan sa reality.
Tama.
So I think it's a good reality that 1 week after we have implemented Resolution 10732, dapat po sana upuan ng COMELEC in consultation with the public, with candidates, with election lawyers, tanungin what do you find objectionable with this resolution? How can we improve of this? Hopefully po, magawa ng paraan sana instead of daanin po sa litigation or pag-question sa Korte Suprema. I think this can be done through a more collaborative way po na pag-usapan sana. Kasi po, it's really impossible to impose actually these regulations in a realistic way po. Because, I mean, sinasabi ko nga, nakita naman natin lahat ng video. Diba? So parang ang hirap po. So parang this is very difficult balance between a public health issue and at the same time the right of the people to actually campaign for or against their candidate, and even the right of the public of the candidates to campaign. So it's a very delicate balance po ito, and I think instead of rather imposing a one-sided regulation, mas maganda po sana na pag-usapan, balik tayo sa drawing board, how do we best improve this regulation po? Hopefully po mapakinggan tayo ng COMELEC po.
Attorney Emil Maranyon, sir, maraming salamat po sa
pagpapaliwanag. Maraming salamat din po sa opportunity na ito po.
God bless and mabuhay po kayo, sir.
Opo, maraming salamat din po sa lahat na nakikinig po.
Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
DWIZ.
At ngayon, balikan natin ang programang Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
It's 8:45. Isang malaking kaganapan din ito ng karamang araw, mga kaibigan. May kinalaman dito sa Malampaya gas field. Naging controversial ito last year, October, naglalo na, dahil kinestyon sa ombudsman ng tatlong complainants kung bakit basta ibinenta lang yung rights ng Chevron at ng Shell sa Malampaya doon sa yung operating shares nila na tigpo 45% yung mga petroleum giants na yan, Chevron tsaka Shell, kaya 90% sila doon sa operation. Tapos 10% yung Philippine National Oil Company Exploration Corporation, isang government, isang state corporation, yung PNOCEC. Ngayon, yung binenta ito sa Udena Corporation na hindi mismo yung Udena, kundi isang subsidiary niya, nakatatayo pa lang, katatatag pa lang, at walang karanasan or technical know-how sa petroleum exploration and production. Ngayon, tinatanong na nga natin din noon, dahil itong Chevron ay sa American kumpanya ito, and it's a publicly listed company, may mga shareholders sa public, traded itong shares nito eh. Ito ba, maaari bang papanagutin din ito sa Amerika? At ito na nga nangyari nitong nakaramang araw. Makikipagkwentuhan tayo sa isa sa mga naghabla sa Chevron. 8 silang Filipino-American leaders sa Amerika. At hinabla nila sa United States Securities and Exchange Commission.
At siya rin ang presidente ng US Pinoys for Good Governance. Let us welcome Attorney Rodel Rodis. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dito, Good evening dito sa San Francisco, pero good morning dyan.
Maraming salamat, Attorney Rodel. Good to hear your voice again. It's been years.
Yes. I know, it's been years, Jarius.
So, ano po itong final na kaso sa USSCC? Ano po yung complaint ninyo sa Chevron?
Well, yung Securities and Exchange Commission, yun ang namamahala sa mga corporations dito sa Amerika. It was set up in 1934 to make sure na the corporations cannot misrepresent or commit acts that are against the interest ng shareholders. No? So, dito sa Securities Exchange Commission, nag-file kami laban sa Chevron because ang sinabi namin is na tinago nila yung talagang katotohanan ng pagbenta nila ng share nila sa Malampaya. Unang-unang sinabi namin is that pinalabas nila sa kanilang stock portfolio, sa kanilang statement sa mga shareholders na binenta nila yung property, yung kanilang interest sa Malampaya to Udena Corporation under the guise of UC Malampaya na sinetap ni Dennis Uy na binenta for $565 million. Yun ang sinabi nila sa shareholders. Ang hindi nila sinabi is that out of this 565, mga 140 to 150 million dollars was yung para sa Chevron na yun ang babayaran at binayad ng Philippine government sa Chevron as part of a 20-year deal na every year binabayaran ng about $150 million ang binabayad sa Chevron. So dapat pumunta na yun sa Chevron at pumunta sa shareholders ng Chevron. Pero binigay nila sa Udena para yung part of the purchase price. So ang binayad lang talaga ng Udena, which is purely from loans, is about $400 million. So that means niloko ang mga shareholders ng Amerika ng Chevron because ang talagang natanggap lang nila from Udena was $400 million, pero ang nilabas nila sa kanilang final sa SEC at sa corporation disclosures sa shareholders was that $560 million. So yun ang sinabi namin na they committed gross misrepresentations.
Attorney Rodel, sabi nga po dito wala naman daw change of ownership
Yun ang sinasabi.
And yet as record sa US na nagbenta.
Oo, nagbenta nga. You know, ang sinabi ni President Duterte, ang sinasabi namin is ganito, no? You can sell whatever you want to sell, but the specific agreement says after you sell, you have to go to the government to ask for the approval. In other words, ang sinabi lang ni President Duterte was the first part of what the agreement calls for. Okay, if you want to sell, you can sell. But in order for you to sell it, para magkaroon ng change of responsibility and ownership, you have to get the approval of the Department of Energy and particularly the Philippine National Oil Corporation, yung PNOEC. At yun ang hindi sinabi ni President Duterte because they did not. They entered into this deal. It was a very yung deal na napaka masahol because Chevron entered into an agreement with Dennis Uy in April of 2019 with a company of Dennis Uy called UC Malampaya in April of 2019. But UC Malampaya was not actually incorporated until September of 2019, and it was only incorporated in Singapore. It wasn't even incorporated in the Philippines. So therefore, Chevron entered into an agreement with a corporation that was not yet in existence. So it was a phantom corporation. It was required to obtain 3 years of financials. But if the company was only formed in September, it had no 3 years of financials to show. And yun ang naging problema. They entered into this agreement without informing the parties, without obtaining the consent of the parties to the agreement, which is what is called for in the agreement.
Mhm. Binabasa ko po yung batas ninyo dyan no? sa Amerika, yung Securities and Exchange Act. Malaking pala ito, violation kapag meron kang pangloloko or fraud, misrepresentation,
Yes.
may tinago kang impormasyon. Tulad nitong dalawang sinasabi niyo po, na inanunsyo dyan na 565 million pero yung pala short ng $100 million yung actual na pumasok sa korporasyon, sa Chevron,
Correct.
Kumbaga may maloloko,
Correct.
diyan, may mga akala ng mga dati ng shareholders na kumita yung kumpanya nila, yung pala short, na blinote lang pala. Tapos baka may bumili pa ng shares dahil dun sa announcement na yon. Kumbaga naloko, na dengoy, to use Filipino term.
Yeah, oo. Yung isa pa is that sinabi ng Chevron sa mga shareholders sa lahat na naibenta, meaning na wala na silang sagot sa Pilipinas sa pamamalakad ng Malampaya. Pero according to Secretary Kusing, nung nagtestigo siya sa harap ng Committee on Energy of the Philippine Senate and in an affidavit na final niya sa harap ng korte, sinabi niya, hindi pa rin alis ang responsibility ng Chevron, na sila pa rin ang may responsibility doon. So, if what Kusi and what the Philippine government is saying is that not so fast, Chevron, you're still involved dito, then hindi yun ang sinabi sa shareholders na wala na silang sabit. At saka isa pa, part of the agreement requires Chevron and Shell to be responsible for restoring Malampaya gas field back to its original condition. They're required to set aside money every year so that pag tapos na ang oil, maaalis yung mga tangke, yung lahat ng mga sinetap na pipeline para yung mga fishermen doon hindi magkakaroon ng oil at leakage at lahat. Wala sa usapan ng Chevron at Udena yung sinong magpapalakad, sinong magbabayad para maayos yung Malampaya. So, pwedeng sabihin at sasabihin ng Udena, wala kaming sagot doon. Yun ang responsibility ng Chevron because silang pumirma niyan. Pero ang sinasabi ng Chevron is that wala na kaming sagot diyan. Naibenta namin, ikaw na ang may responsibility. Ang problema nito is Udena has no track record of ever operating a gas field unlike Chevron and Shell. So, how will Udena make sure na maayos yung first of all, wala silang experience, wala silang anything, plus sinasabi nila hindi sa kanilang sagot yun ang sagot ng Chevron.
And where is that money that's held in
Ayun.
escrow?
That is the good question. That is something Secretary Kusi and the Philippines has to answer, and it was never asked of them what happened to the money set aside to fix that.
And how much is that kaya?
Yeah. That's a good question. One of the things we're telling, sinasabi namin sa Chevron, kung magkaroon ng aksidente dyan sa Malampaya, which is bound to happen dahil walang experience ang Udena, at masira yung yung Palawan Sea at hindi na makapag-fish yung mga fishermen diyan, hindi na makakuha ng lahat ng kailangan para mapakain natin ang Pilipinas. Ang ididemanda is Chevron, and that will be in the billions of dollars because they were irresponsible. They did not sell it to someone at chinek nila, kaya ba nitong company na ibibigay natin to, ibebenta natin, kaya ba nilang mapahala at make sure na tama ang pamamalakad. So grabe ito because in October alone, for 1 month, nagsaradong Malampaya, which means that Meralco had to get other sources because 40% ng energy needs ng Luzon is covered by Malampaya. Kung nagsaradong Malampaya, which is what happened in October to November, Meralco had to get from other sources and tumaas by over 60-70 pesos per customer sa Luzon, and that's a lot of money over a period of time. Kawawang bayan.
Kung mangyari uli yan, halimbawa magkaroon ng aberya sa Malampaya at magkaroon ng mga blackout sa Luzon, matitigil po yung operation of the government, national and local governments dito, mga ospital, mga facilities for telecoms, for instance, or water, yung mga ganun po, maapektado lahat pati mga eskwelahan, simbahan, malls, opisina, ahensya ng gobyerno, o mga shops, pati mga bahay. Ayun, pagka ganun po, mapapanagutin din ng Chevron for transferring its responsibilities.
And ang problema nito is that Udena is underwater with all of its corporation. If you look at the Udena businesses, lahat utang sa lahat ng mga bangko, primarily we think mga Chinese banks. So kung utang, saan tayo if Filipinos sue Udena, saan ang assets ng Udena? Lahat hawak ng lahat ng mga bangko na hinirman nila ng pera. So wala yun. So we would sue Chevron, but it will take years of litigation in federal court in the US. In the meantime, anong mangyayari sa Pilipinas na nagsarado mga business dahil sarado ang Malampaya, dahil hindi matupad yung ginagawa ng dati ng Chevron na ngayon, Malampaya, Udena na ang nagpapalakad. Yun ang aming concern. Kaya kami nag-file sa Ombudsman noong October.
Ano nga pala ang status ng case ninyo na final noong October? Bali, kayo po, Attorney Rodel, kasama niyo si Attorney Loida Nicolas Luis, tsaka si geologist Balgamel Domingo. Po.
Well, ang sabi ng abogado namin sa Pilipinas na ang sinabi sa kanila ng ombudsman is na transfer yung final namin sa Iloilo, which is where Balgamen is from, and then tinransfer sa Manila. So I believe na serve ng lahat ng mga respondents doon, and then what of course Kusi did is that nag-file siya ng cyber libel criminal case against lahat ng mga nag-report ng tungkol sa final namin, ABS-CBN, Rappler, Philippine Inquirer, and sinabi ni Kusi is that nasira daw yung kanyang reputation dahil sa final namin. And of course, the Philippine Senate last week or 2 weeks ago passed a resolution calling for the dismissal of Kusi and for him to be charged in criminal court for his negligence, the same thing that we filed. Is he now going to sue the Philippine Senate? At sasabihin na nasira yung reputation niya because of passing that resolution? Ay,
pero mabalik ako doon sa yung sa SEC case sa Amerika. Pagka ito napatunayan na may mga pagpanlilinin lang or fraud, yung may mga concealment dito ang Chevron, Is it correct na yung nababasa ko na maaring mamultahan, sir, penalize ng billions of dollars?
Yeah. Yes, those are what is within the within the jurisdiction ng SEC. But the billions will not go to the Philippines because yun ang ano, it will go to shareholders, it will go as a penalty, it will go to the government. What we really want is for Chevron to realize what it did was wrong and to make attempts now na ibalik at kunin sa Udena yung hindi dapat na binenta sa Udena, and to restore it back to what it was before, or to sell it to the Philippine National Oil Corporation, which was set up for the purpose of taking over from Chevron and Shell once the 20-year period had passed.
Yung US SEC, Attorney Rodel, does it have the power to compel Chevron, which is under its jurisdiction as a U.S. company, to cancel, to invalidate the sale of Chevron shares to Udena?
That is one of the issues we are studying, because there's some question as to whether it can compel Chevron to go to the Philippines, because ang mangyayari dyan is that even if Chevron agrees na mali nga yung binigay and will ask Udena to return it back, Udena and its lawyers will file and saying na pinirma nyo na tanggap nyo na yung pera, sorry, hindi namin ibabalik sa'yo. That's a problem we're seeing could happen. So that's why we're relying on the Ombudsman's complaint and the Senate in the Philippines, because that's the one that has jurisdiction to order Udena to return it back. It's not the SEC that can order Chevron to get back what it transferred or sold to Udena, because Udena is going to apply to Philippine law and say we sold it, we bought it, it's now ours, we're not obligated to return it back. So yun ang mga issues dyan eh.
As a last question, Attorney Rodel, how long does it usually take itong mga ganitong litigation sa US SEC?
Well, we don't know, we think it will take at least, 3 months for the SEC to study it and decide that this is a serious matter, which we believe they will do, and then they will investigate, what it will compel Chevron to respond to the complaint and to provide the documents involved in the sale. What did they agree to? How did they reach this agreement? Because what is very suspicious about this whole transaction is that it was negotiated in absolute secrecy. In April of 2019, the Chevron Corporation in Singapore, which is in charge of the upstream of Singapore, negotiated with the company of Udena, of Dennis Uy in Singapore, and they reached this agreement to transfer that jurisdiction. And then after they reached the agreement, 5 months later, Udena Uy sets up a corporation in Singapore. And then they finalized it. So all of these things are very suspicious. The funding is very suspicious. We suspect, but we will need to see the documents. We suspect it was Chinese banks that financed this deal. And if China owns that because it owns the the interest in Udena Corporation. Then ang fear namin is that in effect, Dennis Uy has become the Trojan horse of China, and China will control the Philippine energy resources in Malampaya. This is our fear. We don't have the documents, the facts, because all of this was done in secret in Singapore. So we're hoping that the investigation of Chevron may compel Chevron to reveal who were they negotiating with, how did this whole transaction take place.
Miss Vanessa, may question ka?
Oo. May plano kayo, Attorney Rodel, na i-boycott ang Chevron sa US? Yun ang gusto nyo mangyari?
Yes.
Ang
Yes,
tama.
well, I know it. Well, on February 17. Oh, well, there are over 4.5 million Filipinos in the US. At yun ang mga legal, yung mga TNT, mas marami doon. So, we're asking lahat ng mga Pilipino i-boycott ang Chevron. Sa Thursday, magkakaroon kami ng malaking picket rally sa harap ng main headquarters ng Chevron sa San Ramon. So gusto naming ipakita sa Chevron na we mean business, and medyo malakas tayo na maapekto natin hopefully ang course of action ng Chevron.
Oh, pati mga non-Filipinos, pag makuha nyo yung suporta nila.
Oo, because of this
ang sakit sa pusa
50
ng kumpanya.
million na dapat share sila.
Correct.
Oo.
Alright.
Wow. Kayo po, by the way, 8 po kayong nag-file nito ng mga Filipino-Americans, and some of you are citizens tulad niyo po, Filipino rin kayo, si Attorney Nicolas Luis, si Lloyd. Pati yung mga iba ba, rin, dual citizen sila, or?
I think more than half are dual citizens.
I see.
The others are in the process. So, yun ang aming, ginagawa ngayon.
You also have concern for the Philippines.
Oh, yeah. This is something na, this is, I think yung people understand, and I think you understand it more than most, is that sa lahat ng experience ng Philippines sa corruption, from the very beginning of the Spanish period up to now, nothing comes close to this level of corruption. The amount of money, as you pointed out, for only how much did they put up? $500 to they're collecting over $100. They're collecting over $1 million a day. That is scandalous. That is yung kailangan ng Pilipinas para sa yung nangyaring bagyo at maraming darating pa, yung sa pandemic. Kailangan ng pera. Instead, pupunta rin sa isang tiga Davao na businessman na sinusuporta ng China. Kaya kailangan talaga. And this is so bad that the Philippine Senate, and let's remember the Philippine Senate, 12 in the last elections were all from Duterte's party. So many of these are not kaliwa or left. But they just saw this is too shocking na hindi pwede ito. You're not abiding by the rules. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, they came out. Lahat ng mga grupo, I've been getting calls from the Knights of Columbus, Couples for Christ. Talagang garapalan yung ginawa nila. At hindi pwedeng pabayaan to dahil tayo magdudusa already, and more so in the future.
Thank you very much po for explaining the issues, sir. And for fighting for the Philippines.
At nakakatuwa kayong mga US Pinoys, very active.
God bless.
Thank you.
Si Attorney Rodel Rodis, he's also the president of the US Pinoys for Good Governance.
Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
DWIZ.
At ngayon,
balikan natin ang programang Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
Nagbabalik ang Sapol. It's 9:15. At yung mga birthday celebrators dyan, happy birthday sa inyo.
Pati yung mga may sineselebrate din, mga monthsaries at anniversaries.
At lalo yung
Greetings,
mga magsa-celebrate sa Monday.
Yes.
Mamaya may maganda kang sinulat tungkol dyan. Okay.
Pag-usapan naman natin. Marami nagsasabi kasi, no, palipas na ang pandemya sa Britain nga, wala na sila halos restrictions, no? Miski may mga nagkakasakit pa. Ang sabi nila, let's live with this. Masanay na tayo. Sa Amerika, naging ganun na rin yung trend sa mga maraming bansa.
Official na sa Las Vegas, no more masks. Hindi na siya i-impose.
At marami ring mga gobyerno at mga grupo at individual ngayon na nagpaplano na igawin na yun noon pa dapat na ginawa.
Ano yan?
At papanagutin ang China dito sa pangyayaring ito, itong pandemya na ito.
Kasi grabe, no? Nasira ang ekonomiya ng buong mundo.
Sa Pilipinas kaya may mamumuno rito.
Sa Pilipinas?
Oo, sa papapanagutin mo yung China, diba? Sa pangyayaring ito, biro mo ang daming namatay sa atin. Ang daming nasirang negosyo.
Teka, may running total ako dito.
Ang daming naghirap na pamilya. Diba?
Oo. Ang
nawala
namatay
ng hanap
natin,
buhay.
64,854 as of yesterday.
Tapos, ito pa, yung mga gumaling, diba? Ilang milyon din yung gumaling. Pero may maaring permanent na sila eh. Diba?
Oo, damage, ano?
Damage. Diba? Kasi yung nga yung sinasabi, nabe-brain fog, yung iba nasira yung internal organs.
Yung brain fog, parang bigla ka na lang nakakalimot. Ano?
Oo, malilimutan mo. Madami nagkikwento sa akin nangyayari nga raw sa kanila ngayon yun. Mga bata ito hindi ito yung mga elderly, hindi eh. Ano raw sila, nagsasalitang ganyan, tapos biglang nawawala. Hindi naman daw nangyayari sa kanila noon yun.
Grabe, ang laki talagang dapat panagutan. At makakapanayam natin ngayong umaga, ang Dean ng Graduate School of Law ng San Beda College and
San Beda University
and the Vice President of Cagayan State University, Father Dean Ranhilio Aquino. Good morning po, Father Dean.
Good morning po.
Good morning, Jarius and Marisa.
Hi.
Thank you for your time.
I'm sorry, I have a hoarse voice this morning.
I hope this is not due to any infection.
No. I tested myself.
Okay.
Well, you know, yeah, just
naputol tayo. Masama yung connection natin.
I just heard from the government service, and so I'm no longer Vice President for Administration and Finance.
I see.
Yeah.
Of Cagayan State University.
Yes. But I remain Dean of San Beda Graduate School of Law. Yes.
Father Dean, sinasabi nyo na it is possible for countries and families and organizations to make China liable for the pandemic?
Yes, I have always believed that. As you correctly said, so many lives were lost, so many people dear to us were taken away, some economies ground to a halt, so many enterprises suffered, and it is not correct to pretend that China has no liability at all. You know, Jarius, that when I wrote an article that was published in Manila Times on making China liable, somebody wrote me back very furiously and said that according to his findings, the contagion, the infection, did not start with China at all. I answered, insofar as the facts that we have indicate, there is more than enough ground to hold China liable. By the way, I want to make clear that if it is an individual or a family or a group that wants to make a claim, the country, the republic, must espouse their claim. Because in international law, only states have the standing to make claims.
I see.
Yes.
Opo. So, but you said the facts point to China. What are these facts, Father Deep?
Well, at the moment, for example, the World Health Organization asking China to cooperate with it in investigating the origins of the infection. Now, the World Health Organization would not do that unless it starts with some indications that China was the origin of all of this. I don't think it can be doubted that the outbreak happened first in Wuhan province, and that the authorities were aware that there was an outbreak in Wuhan. The ground for liability lies in the fact that despite this knowledge, China did nothing to control ingress and egress out of Wuhan and from China to the rest of the world. And it was this lapse that allowed the virus to spread throughout the whole world. Now, the legal basis is found in the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, of which China is a party. And under that covenant, governments of the world, states, are under obligation to control and treat epidemics. And this was not only an epidemic, this was a pandemic. Alam mo ang nakakagalit, Jarius, no? Marisa, alam na ng mga Chinese authorities na may nangyari sa Wuhan. Bakit hindi nila kinontrol yung pagpasok at paglabas sa Wuhan province at pagbiyahe ng mga pasaherong infected na? Yun ang nakakagalit eh.
In fact, Father Dean, ang kauna-unahang case dito ng COVID ever noong 2020 ay galing sa Wuhan. Diba?
Exactly.
Isang babae at lalaki, namatay pa nga yung isa sa kanila eh. Oh.
Exactly.
Oh, isa sa San Lazaro Hospital na gamot. Ano po. So, tsaka ang nangyari po ron, nung merong isang ophthalmologist na Wuhanese din, at sinabi niya doon sa mga kasamahan niyang doktor sa chat group nila na binahan niya na mukhang may pare-parehong sakit, mukhang may kumakalat na ano rito. Dinampot siya ng pulis eh. Pinadampot siya at tinakot siya na magtahimik.
That's exactly what is so bad and so injurious, no? It was because of acts like this, failure to act, and as you allege, an active attempt to suppress the truth that became very costly for the entire world.
At may nagsasabi pa nga, Father Dean, yung nababasa ko sa ibang mga bansa na papapanagutin daw ang China. Ang sinasabi nila, 2003 pa, 2003, nung unang lumabas yung SARS-CoV-1, bago pa itong ngayon, sinabihan na nila ang China, nakiusap na sila, pwede ba isara ninyo yung mga live animal markets ninyo? Kasi diyan nagmula itong virus na ito. At baka maulit ito dahil nagbebenta ng paniki, yung mga ganon, tapos kinakain, pati yung mga pangolin na ninanakaw sa Pilipinas or sa Malaysia or Indonesia. Tapos mga iba-ibang klaseng wild animals na pinagmumula ng sakit. Hindi nila sinara dahil $79 million a year na industriya yan yung trade in wild animals na live.
Kaya with all those facts, I do not see why the countries of the world do not take action to make China liable under the doctrine of state responsibility in international law. You know, state responsibility means that when any state violates an obligation under international law, it becomes responsible.
Yung kumalat po sa buong mundo itong pandemya na ito, may responsibilidad pa rin po ba ang China na tumulong sa mga ibang bansa na sa pagsugpo ng pandemya?
Of course, kasi kung hindi nila pinayagan na magbiyahe, yung mga pasaherong in-check na may infection, hindi sana kumalat ito. So, nung kumalat na, obligasyon din nila na tumulong sa mga bansang nahihirapan. I can understand that big countries with the ability to cope, like the United States, United Kingdom, may not want to press claims. But for developing countries like ours, this pandemic cost a lot. Yeah.
Imbis na tumulong sa atin, binentahan pa tayo ng bakuna.
Precisely.
At saka hindi nila pinapasok yung WHO team, di ba, na mag-iimbestiga. Pahirap.
Exactly. Kaya nga, up to now, WHO is pleading with them to cooperate in the investigation. Why should they not want to cooperate? Are they concealing something?
Yun nga Tsaka yung pong parang panlilin lang na ang pinapakalat ngayong na nakabuelta na yun China kasi ang naging initial reaction kasi ng buong mundo, wag na muna natin sisihin ng China, labanan muna natin ito. Binago pa nga imbis na Wuhan virus, ginawa ng COVID-19 para hindi o tsaka SARS-CoV-2 para hindi naman daw unfair sa China na natuturo sila yung mga gano'n na parang China virus, Wuhan virus, yung gano'n po. Pero ang nangyari noon, nakabuelta na yung Chinese Communist Party. Ang pinapakalat nila, US Army daw ang nagdala sa Wuhan ng virus. United States Army daw.
That's what happens. That's what happens when we allow China to peddle its lies. Kaya nga, what would be good would be for scientists of the world, credible scientists, to come up with a clear statement of facts.
Correct. At isa-cite lahat ito. Ano po?
Yes.
Pati po yung ginawa nila sa Australia na sinaktan nila yung economy of Australia because Australia called for an international investigation of the source of the virus. Ang ginawa, nagkaroon ng trade embargo. Tinigil nila yung pagbili ng mga goods from Australia, beef, mutton, pati wine, ganun po nanakit sila ng ekonomiya ng isang bansa na humihingi lang ng katotohanan.
And despite the fact that they already inflicted so much injury on other countries of the world, they still engage in embargoes like this. You know, my own feeling is that this should not be done by countries individually. Rather, blocks of countries, regional associations like ASEAN should engage China in dialogue. For me, the most effective means would be alternative dispute resolution, like mediation, conciliation, arbitration.
And what kind of what liability would you put on China, like damages for yung ganon, yung indemnity?
Yes, most of the time,
mga namatay, nagkasakit.
Most of the time, when there is a claim for there's a claim against the state, there will be a claim for damages. Sometimes it can also take the form of reparation. You remember, Jarius and Marisa, after the Second World War, Japan was asked to do reparation work. So they sent equipment, they sent machines, things like that could take. So, for example, China could help developing countries develop their capacity to fight the epidemic better, like supplying ventilators, supplying respirators, equipping hospitals with testing facilities, etc.
Pero yung mga tinulungan nila nun, tulad dun sa Czech Republic, may mga conditions na, sige, bibigyan namin kayo ng isang airplane load of anti-pandemic supplies, pero palitan nyo yung yung mga opisyal nyo na nagko-condemn sa amin.
They have no right imposing any conditions because it was they who endured the world, not we.
Pero that would mean making the Chinese government accept that they are liable, and then the Chinese government will in turn have to convince the Chinese people na kailangan magbayad tayo ng magpo-produce tayo ng mga sasakyan, halimbawa, or kung ano equipment at reparations dahil sa kasalanan natin, ganon.
You know, if we wait for China to admit that it was liable, it will hardly do that. That is exactly why I'm opting for alternative dispute resolution, because China can be made to agree to help developing countries to do some kind of preparation work without having to expressly accept liability. Yes. So, for example, China can say, well, okay, out of a sense of empathy for developing countries that have been floored by this pandemic, we agree to give this amount or to give this equipment, etc., without having to expressly accept liability, because you can never expect them to do that.
To save face,
May save face,
yes,
pogi pa siya.
Exactly. You have to give them an opportunity to save face.
Parang gwapo pa siya, pogi pa siya, na tumutulong siya ngayon. Pero this would mean, magkaisa muna nga yung mga iba-ibang bansa, no? As you said, Father Dean,
maganda yun, regional.
ASEAN.
Yes. Exactly. And the UN also has to do something. You know, we have very powerful groups. The European Union, the UN, ASEAN, the Organization of African States. They are very powerful groups that can all deal with China, that can press China to negotiate, to sit down at the table, because China cannot afford to alienate all of them. No matter what a giant China is, she has to deal with these groups of countries.
Tsaka imbis na ginagasta nila yung pera nila sa paggawa ng mga kung ano-ano mga new supersonic bombs at missiles that can be fired from satellites or from mga bagong airplanes, di dapat gastahin nila imbis na sa pangtanda sa gera, pagtulong sa ibang bansa.
That's correct. That's correct.
It will even deter war and contribute to world peace, di po ba? Kung ganun yung magkano lang sila.
You know what's important lang kasi is somebody should start the ball rolling. Some countries should come together. And I really don't understand why ASEAN, that was badly hit, does not do anything so far.
Yeah. So,
laki ng kasi utang.
Kasi yun nga ang panagot ng China kasi, we will deal with you individually, tapos nagbibigay na kami ng tulong sa sabihin, tsaka nag-i-invest na kami sa inyo, nagpapautang na kami sa inyo, ganyan
No, deal with you individually because each individual is weak compared to China.
Yeah.
But we can insist that we stand together as a group.
Okay.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much
Thank
po.
you very much.
Thank you very much, too. Thank you very much. God bless.
God bless po. Mabuhay
Father
kayo.
Ranhilio Aquino, Dean of the San Beda University Graduate School of Law.
Miss Marisa, maganda yung pin-point out ni Father Dean. Kung nag-iisa ka, kung
Mahina, di ba?
mahina. Parang naalala ko tuloy yung inaan yan, yung walis ting-ting.
Oo, exactly. Yun din ang
Yung
nasa
isang
isip ko.
ting-ting. Di ba?
Oo.
Kayang-kaya mong baklin.
Oo.
Miski isang kamay, gaganon mo lang sa mga daliri mo, o bakli yung ting-ting. Pero pag pinagbigkis-bigkis mo yung mga ting-ting na yun, di ba? Subukan mong baklin. Hindi mo kaya. Sasakit ang braso.
Correct.
Di ba?
At saka talaga, in unity there is strength. Kaya dapat nga ganun, by groups.
Oo, pero maganda yung point ni Father Ranhilio Aquino. Bakit tahimik? Bakit nananahimik pa rin? Hindi na pwede itong ganito na parang nice, Mr. Nice Guy na okay lang to, wag na natin sisihin, ganyan-ganyan. Wala na, hindi naman nila kagustuhan ito eh. Meron silang mga ginawa na kontra sa usapan. Yun ang point ni Father Dean. No? Hindi naman talaga nila gusto yung mga bumili, kumain ng paniki na iputan ng pangolin, yung mga ganun eh. Hindi, baliktad pala, sorry. Kumain ng pangolin na naiputan ng paniki, na pinanggalingan itong virus na ito, kumalat na ng kumalat. Hindi naman nila gusto yun. Kaso,
pero
yung gobyerno ng China, pinagtakpan ito, hinuli yung doktor, di ba?
At saka yung
binalaan sila.
state responsibility.
Pinalabas yung mga 5 million Wuhanis pa ang nakalabas. After
Tapos,
this,
may
kaya
sinabi
kumalat
pa
sa
nga
mundo.
Si Father Dean Aquino, China is a party to the Covenant on Social, Economic, Political, and Cultural Rights. Tapos may Article 12.2, ito yung sa column niya sa Manila Times, obligates state parties to control and treat epidemic diseases. Yun talaga. Sapol na siya doon. Okay.
Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
DWIZ.
At ngayon, balikan natin ang programang Sapol ni Jarius Bondoc.
At babalik ang Sapol at batiin ko muna si Charlie Ocampo Pillas at si Jerome Cruz. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Si Rosel D. Hello po, Sir Jarius at Miss Marisa. My Saturdays.
Hello.
Stay safe, stay healthy, stay strong always. God bless you and family. Grabe talaga ang current administration. Thank you, U.S. Pinoys, for fighting for our kababayans and for the country. Galing talaga ng ginagawa nila doon, At saka galing kay Ver Gayas ng Quezon City. Sa tingin ko, Sir Jarius at Miss Marisa, hindi tinignan ng dalawang commissioners ng First Division kung si BBM ay may moral ascendancy to hold the highest office of the land. That's why they rejected the disqualification case of BBM. May term nga siya, hindi ko nababasahin yung dalawang commissioners na yan.
Pero alam mo, naisip ko, ano kayang kahihinatnan ng isang bansa na ang presidente mo, 4 na sunod-sunod na taon, hindi nag-file ng income tax returns, 4 na taon at opisyal siya noon, tapos nag-convict siya pero hindi siya nagbayad ng buwis pa rin, tsaka ng multa na sinet ng korte. Ano mangyayari kaya? May magbabayad pa ng buwis. Paano nga andar ang gobyerno? Sa isang bansa na, kung si President hindi nagbabayad, di lahat na lang hindi magbabayad. Di ba? Anong kahihinatnat natin?
By example.
Oo. Yung COMELEC, wala na sila. Hindi na sila masisweldohan. Walang buwis eh.
Oh, yes.
Diba? Gulo eh. Gulo ang kababagsakan natin. Walang eleksyon, walang COMELEC, walang halalan, kanya-kanya na lang tayo. Hindi ba? Basta kung hindi yan inherently wrong.
Mabalik tayo. Oo nga. Mahirap wala nang moral ascendancy to lead.
Pag-ibig na lubhang napakapangyarihan. Kapag ikaw ang nasok sa puso ni numan, hahamaking lahat, makamit ka lamang. Florante at Laura.
Galing, no? Hanggang ngayon ay very, ano pa yun?
Alam mo,
Tawag mo doon.
miski pa,
Tatanungin natin si Winner. Ano yun, Winner? Perfect pa rin siya. Very apt, ano?
oo. Ang pag-ibig talaga, no? Kaya para sa mga Valentines, ano? Yung, di ba, miski pandemya, hindi mo maaawat. Di ba?
Dapat
Love
lang.
knows no, ano,
Oo.
boundaries or ano, di ba?
Yung 1838 na akda, yan, ano? Ni
Francisco Balagtas.
Balagtas sa Florante at
Kinak
Laura.
kinakda niya yan habang nakakulong siya.
Oh.
Pinakulong siya nung karibal niya.
Ay, akala ko sa totoong buhay.
Pinakulong si Balagtas.
Ha?
Pinakulong siya, hinanapan siya ng kaso. Tapos pinakulong siya nung mayamang karibal niya. Kanino niya dinedicate yung Florante at Laura? Tingnan mo sa unang ano. Kay Celia.
Oo, kay Celia. S-E-L-Y-A pa yan,
Oo.
no?
Talagang yun. Alam mo ba yung mga ganyang love poems? Talaga ano yan grabe ang inspiration yan di ba? Para si Dante Alighieri, yung in Italian niya naman sinulat yung kanyang the greatest love poem ever daw sa Europe, di ba? Ganun din Ganun din dito sa Pilipinas, di ba?
At anong ganun din dito sa Pilipinas?
Itong love poem na to, yung Florante at Laura, di ba?
Feelings na ganyan, ano?
Oo.
Paano nga yung pandemya? Buti na lang medyo nag-i-ease up, pero di ba last year, paano yun? Via Zoom.
Via Zoom ang ligawan tsaka date, ano?
Oo.
Via Viber.
Via Viber.
Oo.
Kasi dati kasi you can go out, watch movies, manood ng sunset.
Holding hands, hindi kailangan mag-alcohol, walang distancing. Hindi kailangan. Pwede kayo mag-smooching, hindi nakalmask.
Oo,
Pag nakamask, paano kayo pagnanakawa ng halik?
Tapos ang daming mga kasalan na scale down ng husto kasi 10 guests, including the priest, including the couple. Grabe, yun ang weird.
Oo, at least napamura yung mga naging mura yung pagpapakasal. Diba? Murang damit lang, konting pagkain, gano'n. Pero ang dami pa rin regalo.
Oo.
Madami pa rin pakimkim, gano'n.
Yung new normal, ano? Tapos nauso din yung mga pagde-date, manonood ng Netflix, sabay.
Oo, merong app na hindi Netflix app yon, pero may app na na-invento na pagka magkahiwalay kayo, magkalayuan, magkaibang isla kayo o syudad. Pero sabay na sabay yun yung may on yung Netflix movie. May app na ganun Para parang magkasama na rin kayo.
Tapos may popcorn ka na rin, so para...
order kayo ng parehong pagkain. Ganun. Para tapos meron kayong may bukod sa nanonood kayo sa TV nyo, sa gadget nyo, nakikita nyo naman ang isa't isa. Yun. Tapos kumakain kayo, magkaharap kunwari.
Kunyari, isang kaibigan mo, di ba, kinuwento mo dati, na kunyari, at the end of the table, nakaset na siya. Tapos nakatapat yung kanyang gadget. So, yung
katapat
partner,
yung girlfriend niya.
Ganun din. Nakaset up din. So, parang they're dining together. Nakakatawa.
Tapos, ano pa ha? Dinner by candlelight sila. Tapos, ganun din. May music sila. They're listening to the same concert. Sabay na sabay din. Kasi may live may live concert sila pinapakinggan noon. Pero magkahiwalay sila lugar. Ang ganda nakakatuwa. Sa Amerika yun. Yung nagla-live concert naman, layo-layo rin sila. Tsaka walang live audience. Yun lang jazz band. Tapos mellow jazz ang tinutugtog.
Grabe.
Dim light sila, candlelight. Galing.
Ang daming negosyo na apektuhan, Yung mga motels, yung mga biglang liko.
Oo.
Yung walang ng negosyo for 2 years.
Di ba, bago mag-pandemic, di ba, yung mga media, di ba, lalo na sa broadcast, nakatutok sa mga motel. Tinitingnan yung pila ng mga papasok doon, gano'n. Yun nga yung may government vehicle na papasok. Kaya walang ganun ngayon,
Oo.
Wala na, hindi na binantay.
Grabe. Ang daming negosyong nalugi. Pero at least may flowers pa kasi napapadeliver ng via Grab or mga lalamove dyan. Tapos yung mga chocolates, flowers, ano nga ba yung may text na nakakatawa Teka, hanapin ko.
Sa Japan, alam mo sa Japan, ang nauso pa, magde-date, magkikita sa isang, parking lot muna, ganyan. Tapos, sisilipan muna sila, magkahiwalay na kotse.
Okay.
Oo. Tapos, magsisilipan sila.
Gadget.
Oo, tapos mag-uusap sila ron, ganon-ganon. Tapos, kung magkasundo, sige, sige, kain tayo. Order sila kanya-kanya. Kanya-kanya pa rin. Sige, kain tayo. Typo, sige, now I've met you, ganyan-ganyan.
As in, kunyari, magkatabi yung kotse nila sa parking?
Tapos order sila dun sa, sa drive-thru. may Japanese term pa nga. Yung ibang pa nga, uwi sa sa phone sex. May mga ganong sa kwentuhan nila nagiging lumalabis, kumbaga.
Buti na lang may disappear time sa app.
yung mga retrato, kung minsan pinadadala nila yung retrato ng nila. Buti may lang yan, disappear upon yung mga 30 seconds after makita.
Grabe, napaka yan ang may initiative at creativity.
Sa iba naman, yung sa Amerika, yung nauso ulit tuloy yung mga yung drive-thru movies naman. Yung paparada ka, tapos manonood ka ng sine mula sa outdoor ito, mula sa kotse mo lang, tapos yung ka-date mo nandun sa kabilang kotse. Yan. Magkahiwalay kayo nanonood. Tapos senyasa na lang, ganyan.
O kaya magtawagan mo, OMG, ang ganda ng scene, gano'n?
Oo, takot ako ron, gano'n. Akala ko yung zombie,
Grabe, ang hirap. At least naman, nakaka-cope.
Gano'n, iba-ibang paraan
Ay, yung mga, itong kwento ni Winer, nagulat, nagalit daw sa kanya yung misis niya. Tinanong siya, bakit, pre? Anong nangyari? Tanong nung kaibigan. Gusto niya kasi bilang ko siya ng chocolates at teddy bear. Ano binili mo? Sagot ba naman ni Winer, Bear Brand Choco. Ang simple talaga, Winer.
Teddy bear at chocolate. Bear Brand Choco nga naman. Lasot, di ba?
Tapos tinanong pa naman siya ng misis niya. Sabi ni Winer, tinanong ako ni misis kung i-date ko ba siya sa Valentine's Day. Sabi ko, hindi ako nakikipag-date sa may asawa. Winer?
Pabalik tayo sa mga iba-ibang paraan ng pag-date. Kung masaklap naman, pagka ibe-break.
Okay.
Pag magbe-break,
ang dami niya,
text
ang dami
na lang.
ng break kasi wala there's no chance na makapag-share ka ng feelings mo, makilala mo further yung tao na nakukuha yun sa pakikipagkwentuhan, di ba? Pag-share. So I'm sure ang daming nag-break up.
Itine-text. Na lang. Yung break na tayo, text lang.
Grabe.
Ang bigat nun. Tsaka yung kung minsan nga, hindi nga tinext Yun lang halimbawa, may Zoom notice, this meeting has ended.
End of session.
End of session. This session has ended. Tapos ka. Ganun lang.
Wala ka lang. Ito kung babalikan mo, balik mo sa akin yung binigay kong regalo ko. Ganon. Hindi, pwede kang hindi pansinin.
Hindi. Virtual yung sing-sing mong binigay. Virtual naman So, paano ko isusole?
Grabe, ang sakit.
Well, that's life in the time of pandemic. Love in the time of pandemic.
That's true. Ano pang mga experiences nyo?
Yan.
Sana makapagkwento, Pero at least wala nang medyo hindi nai-stress sa mga magulang na nagbabantay sa mga anak. yung mga maglalabas ng baril na lilinisin habang nandoon na nanliligaw yung isang binata,
yung tatay naglilinis ng baril niya. Tapos itituro pa yung baril. Ikaw, ilan taon ka na ba? Iho, ganun. Pero nakaturo yung baril.
Kunyari, sinisimpat-simpat.
Kumain ka na ba, iho? Ganun pa.
Kasi kami hindi pa gano'n, tapos magsiset na. Wala namang invitation to stay for dinner.
Anak, ipagbukas mo nga ito ng bintana.
Hindi ito. At bye-bye.
Yung estilo doon.
Yung mga unang panahon. At saka yung mga bulungan sa phone, di ba? Habang naliligaw. Kaya halata ka kaagad ng magulang mo kung ikaw yung girl, di ba? Dahil, sino yung kabulungan mo dyan? Buti ngayon, naka-text na, naka-earphone, di ba? Very safe sa parental intrusion.
Okay, paalam na, Miss Marisa.
Ay, sa bagay, para marinig pa natin yung last song natin. Thank you very much for keeping us company. Enjoy yung 2 hours na nandyan kayo. Thank you to our resource persons, our sponsors, at sa ating technical support. Si Winnie Contejido na magba-birthday bukas.
Mamas ko po!
Tapos na yung Pasko ng New Year ng Chinese. Kay Communication Assistant Maze Alino, Dayon. News writers Ariam Sancho and Abby Alino Angeles. At sa ating SOCMED, kila Jam Tarayo, Jairus Rojas at Allen Ibanez. Thank you. Okay, samahan niyo kami ulit next week.
Jarius Bondoc po nagpapaalala ha, magdadasal tayo parati para tayo nakikipagkwentuhan sa Diyos, in the act of meditation. Thank you. Have a good day. Abangan, kasunod po kagad natin sina.
Tama. Baka pwedeng sagutin ni Mr. Taxman Jerry Flores kung ano itong issue na bringing out ng first division ng COMELEC,
Ay, Mr. Taxman, hindi inherently wrong.
Hindi pala yun of moral turpitude, ha? Pwede tayong, tatanggap pa sila ng questions, mag-text nga tayo sa kanila. Thank you very much, Jerry Flores at Celi Ortega Bueno sa
Mr. Taxman.
Sumainyo ang Sapul ni Jarius Bondoc hanggang sa susunod na Sabado. Muling abangan sina Miss Marisa at ang inyong batikang kolumnista at iskupero, Mr. Jarius Bondoc sa programang Sapul ni Jarius Bondoc.